You died. The letters hang on your screen like an epitaph written in blood red. Ornstein's spear is still buried in your spine, and somewhere in the distance, medieval orchestral music plays your funeral march. This is your 14th attempt. Your controller has stress fractures. Your faith in the concept of fun died 3 hours ago. But you respawn anyway, because that's what we do here. You log into Rust to find smoking ruins where your base used to be. 2 weeks of work, gone. Not to some natural disaster or game glitch, but to players who coordinated a 3 AM raid like they were planning the Normandy landings. They didn't even take your stuff, they just erased you. Your sleeping bag is gone, your furnaces are gone. Even your decorative skull collection has been scattered to the wind. In the distance, teenagers laugh over voice chat. They're comparing your base's structural integrity to various failed nation states. Apparently your defense is held about as well as the Soviet economy. You stare at the crater where your life used to be. Then you start gathering wood again, because giving up is for people with dignity. Jeff, your third character this week, after Dave and Susan both met untimely ends, vaults over a fence with all the athletic grace of a parliamentarian attempting parkour. He trips, falls face first into the Kentucky dirt. And that's when you hear it. The groaning. Not his groaning, the other kind. The Horde doesn't care that Jeff was saving a can of soup for the winter. They don't care about his dreams of finding other survivors or building a garden behind the school. Project Zomboid whispers its tagline like a coroner filing paperwork. This is how you died. Jeff's screams fade to black. You create a new character. You name him Kevin. Kevin's going to be different. Kevin's going to survive. Kevin dies 6 minutes later to a house alarm. In a desert that forgot your name before you ever spoke it, a drifter limps through a sandstorm. Their companions are dead, eaten by beak things, enslaved by Holy Nation zealots, or just lost to the world's infinite capacity for cruelty. The simulation doesn't pause for their sacrifice. Caravans still trade, wars still rage. Kenshi keeps spinning without you, indifferent as the rotation of distant planets. A shadow passes near you. 20 feet of prehistoric nightmare descends like divine punishment for the sin of existing. The beak thing doesn't hate you, it's just hungry. And you're just meat that happens to think it's playing a game. The drifter screams, the screen goes red. The world continues, not caring. The fire dies in the Canadian wilderness, taking your last hope with it. You watch the ember flicker out like the end credits of a movie nobody wanted to see. The cold creeps in through your shelter. If you can call 4 sticks and optimism a shelter. Your character clutches their coat, but hypothermia doesn't negotiate. The Long Dark doesn't apologize for being exactly what it promised. Long and dark. You could reload an earlier save, but you don't. You sit there, watching your avatar curl into the snow. And something deeply wrong blooms in your chest. You're almost enjoying this. Like watching your own funeral from the back row. The screen fades to white. Even death here is cold. These worlds don't want you here. They don't want you to survive. They don't even want you to try. Dark Souls crushes you with medieval precision. Rust burns your dreams while you sleep. Zomboid whispers your obituary. Kenshi forgets that you even exist. The Long Dark freezes you to death and calls it Tuesday. And yet, you keep coming back. You know this isn't fun, but you keep playing. Why? Most games want you to feel like a god. They hand you power-ups, level you up, pat you on the head for existing. They're participation trophies disguised as interactive entertainment. Press X to feel special. Hold right trigger to experience meaning. You are the chosen one, the hero, the protagonist of a universe designed to make you feel important. But some games don't get the memo. Some games look at your need for validation and respond with the digital equivalent of a shrug. They don't care if you win. They don't care if you have fun. They barely care if you exist at all. These are the games that hate you. Watch someone play Kenshi for the first time. Really watch them. The confusion starts early. Where's the tutorial? The quest markers? The helpful NPC explaining why I should care about any of this? There is none. You're a fragile bag of blood wandering through a desert that forgot your name before you even spoke it. The simulation runs with or without you. You are not the main character here. You're not even a side character. You're just another thing that can die. And when you do die, and you will die, probably to something embarrassingly mundane like starvation or a pack of bone dogs, the world never pauses to mourn you. It keeps spinning, indifferent as the appetite of a beak thing. Your corpse becomes just another landmark in a geography of failure. The game never stops, even when you do die. But that's not fair, you might say. Fair is a bedtime story we tell ourselves, and Kenshi doesn't do bedtime stories. Rust takes this indifference and weaponizes it through other players. The environment wants to kill you, sure. Radiation, cold, hunger, wildlife that treats you like a meal delivery service. But the real horror is logging in to find that someone burned down your house, not for resources, not for strategic advantage, but just because they could. They probably did it while you were sleeping, like digital arsonists with assault rifles and daddy issues. 2 weeks of careful planning, resource gathering, architectural dreams, reduced to smoking ruins and a chat log full of teenagers explaining exactly how your mother disappointed them last night. This isn't even mentioning the baseline cruelty that's to be expected of Rust. Door camping that makes the very act of playing the game borderline impossible. Roof camping by some guy who didn't pass GCSE English or probably should be deployed on the front lines of Ukraine right now. The game offers no customer service for this. No rollback feature, no sorry your castle got democratically voted off the island by a council of sociopaths. Rust's approach to player complaints is roughly equivalent to the universe's response to entropy. Well yeah, that's how things work here. And yet, inexplicably, you rebuild, because the alternative is admitting that 12-year-olds with C4 have more commitment than you do. Dark Souls takes a different approach to hostility. Where Rust delivers cruelty through chaos, Dark Souls delivers it through design. Every enemy placement is deliberate, every trap is calculated, every death feels like it was personally crafted for your specific brand of arrogance. The game doesn't lie to you, it tells you exactly what it is from the opening cinematic. This is a world where gods have failed, kingdoms have fallen, and hope is something that happens to other people. You are not special, you are not chosen, you're just another undead with delusions of adequacy, stumbling through the ruins of something greater than yourself. When you die and the game calls it death, not defeat or setback, it's not a bug, it's a feature. You died appears on screen with the finality of a coroner's report. The game doesn't apologize, it doesn't offer tips, it just sits there, waiting for you to accept responsibility for your failures and try again. But here's the thing about Dark Souls that separates it from mere sadism. It's fair. Brutally, uncompromisingly fair. Every death is your fault. Every failure is a lesson disguised as punishment. The game hates you, but it hates you with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. There's an artistry to its cruelty. Project Zomboid doesn't even pretend there's hope. The game's tagline isn't survive the apocalypse or become the last hero. It's this is how you died. Past tense, foregone, conclusion. You're not playing to win, you're playing to delay the inevitable. The infection mechanics alone are a masterclass in futility. Got scratched by a zombie? Maybe you're infected, maybe not. The game won't tell you for hours, sometimes days. You'll sit there, checking your character's health panel obsessively, looking for signs of fever like a hypochondriac with Wi-Fi access. And when the fever comes, because it will, it always comes, the game doesn't offer magic cures or last-minute salvation. You get to experience the slow, methodical process of your character becoming exactly what they've been fighting against. There's poetry in that horror, if you're into that sort of thing. The Long Dark strips away even the dramatic stakes of zombies and replaces them with something worse, the weather. You don't die to monsters or marauders, you die to Tuesday. A cold front moves in, your fire goes out, and physics handles the rest. The game treats your death with all the ceremony of a weather report. Local area man freezes to death, more at 11. These games share something that most entertainment actively avoids. They don't care about your feelings. They won't hold your hand. They won't explain themselves. They won't apologize for being exactly what they promised to be. They operate by the logic of natural systems, indifferent, relentless, utterly without malice. An avalanche doesn't hate the village it buries. A hurricane doesn't take sides. Entropy doesn't check your approval rating before increasing. This indifference feels more real than empowerment, because indifference is more real than empowerment. The universe doesn't care if you succeed. Your mortgage doesn't care about your dreams. Gravity doesn't negotiate. But here's what makes those games beautiful in their cruelty. When you do succeed, when you finally beat that boss, survive that winter, the triumph feels earned, not given, not scripted. Earned through suffering and the stubborn refusal to accept death. In a world of participation trophies, these games offer something rarer. The chance to fail. Really, truly fail. And in that failure, to discover something about yourself that no amount of artificial praise could ever teach. These games don't want you to feel like a god. They want you to feel human, fragile, mortal, and somehow, against all odds, still trying. That's not hostility, that's honesty. And maybe, just maybe, that's why we love them. But yes, before we go any further, if you are enjoying the video so far, please make sure to like and subscribe, because YouTube like when view to subscriber ratio is high, and my channel need more subscriber. I want to hit 50k before the 1-year channel anniversary, which is August 13th, which hopefully we should be able to hit, which would be 50k in 1 year, which is absolutely insane, by the way. Thank you all so much. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and let me know if you like these type of more thematic video essays that don't just cover one game. But yes, into the next section. Woo! You know what's wrong with most video games? They're too easy. Not mechanically, though many are, but existentially. They hand you victory like a participation trophy at a children's football league. Press X to win, hold right trigger to matter. Congratulations, you've completed another power fantasy designed by committee and focus tested for maximum dopamine release. But dopamine without suffering is just chemical, empty calories for the soul. It's the difference between earning a meal and having someone force feed you sugar water. Both might satisfy you temporarily, but only one feels real. Hostile games understand something most entertainment has forgotten. Pain gives weight to progress. Without suffering, there is no triumph. Without struggle, victory is just Tuesday. Let's talk about Ornstein and Smaug. 2 tons of medieval nightmare dressed in the kind of armor that makes you question your life choices. For most Dark Souls players, these two represent a specific kind of educational experience. The kind where the lesson is delivered via repeated blunt force trauma to your ego. You'll die to them, a lot. Your first attempt probably lasts about 15 seconds before Ornstein's spear finds a home between your shoulder blades. Your controller will wish it wasn't there. Your neighbors will learn new vocabulary. You'll question why anyone thought making interactive entertainment that feels like a tax audit was a good idea. But then something beautiful happens. You start to learn, not through tutorials or helpful tooltips, but through the ancient human method of touching fire until you understand fire. You begin to read their attack patterns like scripture. You start to see the gaps, tiny windows of opportunity that feel like discovering hidden passages in reality itself. And when you finally drop both of them, something remarkable occurs. The victory doesn't feel like relief, it feels like an achievement, like you've wrestled meaning from a universe that never meant to give you it. This is what happens when difficulty serves narrative instead of the other way round. The struggle becomes the story, your failure becomes chapters, the pain transforms from obstacle into teacher. Most games give you power. Dark Souls makes you earn it, one death at a time, and there's a difference. Consider the alternative, games that scale to your ability, that adjust difficulty dynamically to ensure you never feel truly challenged. They're like helicopter parents for your leisure time, constantly intervening to make sure you never experience genuine failure or frustration. But failure is where growth lives. Comfort is where dreams go to die. We're biologically wired to find meaning in struggle. Our ancestors didn't develop complex brains to optimize for leisure. They developed them to solve problems, overcome obstacles, survive in hostile environments. The satisfaction of victory is literally encoded in our DNA, but only if that victory follows genuine adversity. Hostile games tap into this primal program. They don't give you power, they give you the opportunity to develop power. Through suffering, through repetition, and through the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. It's the difference between being handed a trophy and earning a scar. Let me tell you about Cornelius III. He was going to be different. Unlike his predecessors, David and Susan, both of whom met untimely ends to zombie-related incompetence, he had a plan. He was going to be careful, methodical. He was going to survive. He lasted 6 hours and 43 minutes. His death wasn't dramatic, no heroic last stand, no noble sacrifice. He tried to vault a fence whilst carrying too much weight, stumbled and got swarmed by undead who were probably just as surprised as he was about the sudden buffet opportunity. Project Zomboid recorded his story with the emotional weight of a rock. This is how you died. No fanfare, no tragic music. Just facts delivered with the bureaucratic efficiency of death certificates. But here's the thing. His story matters because of how it ended, not despite of it. His failure created narrative weight that no scripted death scene could match. The game didn't tell you to care about him, it made you care for the investment of time, effort, and hope that died with him in that Kentucky backyard. Every hostile game understands this same principle. Your failures are your stories. Similarly, in Kenshi, nobody cares that you spent 3 hours building the perfect base, only to watch it get overrun by cannibal raids while you were out trading copper for food. The simulation doesn't pause to acknowledge your loss, but you remember. You remember the exact moment when you realized your defenses weren't going to hold. You remember the sight of your squad leader screaming as something with too many teeth dragged him away. These memories have weight because they cost something. They weren't given to you by a narrative designer who calculated the optimal emotional response. They emerge from the intersection of your choices, the game's systems, and the universe's fundamental indifference to your plans. This is emergent storytelling at its purest. Not the kind where developers script emotional beats and hand them to you like a care package, but the kind where story emerges from the chaos of complex systems interacting with your stubbornness. Your failures become legends you tell yourself. Your victories become myths you build your identity around. The pain makes it real, and here's how it works. Struggle equals failure, which equals persistence, which goes to triumph, and then back to struggle. It's the same cycle that governs everything from athletic training to academic achievement to relationships. The cycle that most entertainment tries to skip because the struggle part makes focus groups uncomfortable. But skip the struggle and you short-circuit the meaning itself. Like Kenshi, watch someone play Rust for the first time. The initial confusion gives way to cautious optimism as they build their first base. A modest wooden box that represents countless hours of gathering resources, learning crafting recipes, avoiding radiation zones, and players who treat newcomers like renewable resources. Then they log in the next day to find smoking ruins where their dreams used to be. Everything gone, not taken, destroyed, burned, just for the sake of burning. The sensible response would be to quit. Find a game that respects your time investment. Play something designed by people who understand basic human psychology. And some certainly do. But others instead start gathering wood again. The cold doesn't hate you. This is the first law of hostile worlds, and perhaps the most difficult for human minds to grasp. When your character freezes to death in the long dark, when the Canadian wilderness claims another body for its endless collection, the cold isn't celebrating, it isn't keeping score, it simply continues being cold with the persistence of physics itself. We spend our lives living in worlds designed around human needs. Heated buildings, paved roads, grocery stores that exist because someone somewhere decided we shouldn't have to hunt for food. Even our entertainment typically revolves around us, creates meaning for us, validates our existence through carefully crafted experiences. But some games operate by different principles entirely. Some games create worlds that would function perfectly well if no player ever logged in. In Kenshi, with mods anyway, the Holy Nation wages war against the United Cities, not because you need content, but because zealots enslave us of incompatible worldviews. Caravans move goods between settlements based on supply and demand. Crop yields fluctuate with weather patterns. Bandit populations rise and fall according to regional stability. These aren't background animations designed just to create atmosphere. They're interconnected systems following their own internal logic, pursuing their own ends, creating their own stories. The simulation runs whether you're watching or not. With mods, obviously. The base game is actually rather limited in this regard, but shush. You can build the perfect trading empire, corner the market, become essential to entire city survivals. Then something shifts, trade routes alter, and your economic strategy becomes as relevant as yesterday's weather. The simulation doesn't pause to explain this to you, it doesn't offer alternatives or suggest new approaches. It simply continues being what it is, a world with its own priorities. This is the beauty of systematic indifference. It creates authenticity through neglect. When systems pursue their own logic instead of your satisfaction, they generate the kind of emergent complexity that no amount of designed content could match. Contrast this with most entertainment, where every element exists to serve your experience. Where storms arrive when you need dramatic tension, where enemies attack when you need combat, where resources appear when you need progression. These worlds feel hollow because they are hollow. Elaborate stage sets with you as the only audience that matters. Indifferent worlds operate more like ecosystems than entertainments. In Subnautica's ocean, Leviathans patrol territories they've claimed for reasons that have nothing to do with providing you with boss encounters. They hunt when hungry, defend when threatened. Their behavior follows biological imperatives that existed long before you crashed on their planet, and will continue long after you leave. When a Reaper Leviathan destroys your Seamoth, it's not because the game decided that you need a setback. It's because you entered its territory in something that looked like prey. The attack follows a predator logic, not narrative logic. The creature doesn't know it's in a game, it only knows that something unfamiliar has invaded its space. This ecological thinking creates a different kind of immersion. Not the kind where you become the hero of a story, but the kind where you become one small part of a larger system, where your survival depends on understanding patterns that exist independent of your desires. The Long Dark presents perhaps the purest example of systematic indifference in gaming. The world is not hostile in any personal sense, it simply operates according to principles that have no concept of fairness. Weather systems move across the landscape following patterns inherited from actual climatology. Temperatures drop because that's what temperatures do in northern Canada during winter. Wildlife behaves according to seasonal migration patterns and territorial instincts. Resources exist because they exist, not exist where you need them to exist. When you freeze to death, it's not because the game wanted to punish you, it's because you existed in a system where heat dissipates according to thermodynamic laws, where wind chill is a mathematical relationship between temperature and air movement, where hypothermia is simply what happens when biological systems encounter temperatures beyond their operational parameters. The game treats your death with the emotional weight of a report because that's exactly what it is, a data point in a larger system that doesn't distinguish between your character and any other heat source that might fluctuate and eventually go out. The indifference creates a peculiar form of beauty. Every fire you light becomes precious, not because the game tells you that it's important, but because you understand its place in the larger equation. Every warm shelter becomes sanctuary because you've experienced firsthand what the absence of shelter means in a world governed by physics rather than narrative convenience. What these games really offer is a different relationship with existence. They create spaces where meaning isn't provided but must be discovered, where significance emerges from your own interaction with these systems that have their own logic, their own purposes, their own complete indifference to your participation. Even in games like Dwarf Fortress, civilizations rise and fall according to economic pressures, military conflicts, and natural disasters that follow complex algorithms modeling everything from geology to psychology. Your fortress is one small part of a world simulation that generates thousands of years of history, complete with wars, dynasties, and cultural movements that would exist whether you played or not. When your carefully planned fortress gets overrun by forgotten beasts or succumbs to internal strife, it's not because the game wanted to create drama. It's because these systems interacting over time inevitably generate chaos, and chaos inevitably generates collapse. Your fortress wasn't destroyed, it was entropy made manifest. This is simulation as existential education. These games teach us what it feels like to exist in a universe that operates by its own principles rather than ours. They create spaces where we can experience indifference without consequence, where we can practice finding meaning in systems that don't necessarily provide it. The appeal of indifferent worlds isn't masochistic, well, it might be a little bit, but mainly it's philosophical. They offer something increasingly rare in modern experience, the opportunity to exist in spaces that don't revolve entirely around us. Most of our constructed environment exists solely to serve human needs. Cities are built for human scale, technology is designed for human interaction, even our wilderness areas are managed, mapped, made safe for human recreation. We live in a world increasingly tailored to our own specifications, but these games create spaces that feel genuinely alien. Not because they're filled with strange creatures or impossible physics, but because they operate according to logic that has nothing to do with human psychology. They're beautiful in the way that natural systems are beautiful, not because they care about our aesthetic preferences, but because they follow patterns too complex for any individual mind to fully comprehend. When you succeed in these worlds, when your crops survive the drought, when your base outlasts the raiders, when you find shelter before the storm, the victory feels profound because it was earned against systems that don't care if you succeed. You found purchase in a universe that offers no guarantees, created meaning in a space that provides no guidance. These aren't worlds that hate you, they're worlds that have better things to do than notice your existence. And somehow, that indifference feels more honest than all the carefully crafted experiences designed to make you feel special. In the end, that's what indifferent worlds offer. Honesty. The honesty of systems that follow their own logic. The honesty of spaces that exist for themselves rather than for you. The honesty of universes that don't care if you find them meaningful, but become infinitely more meaningful because of it. You know this isn't fun, but you keep playing. There's something magnificent about that moment, the split second between dying and deciding to try again, when the screen goes dark, when the death counter ticks up, when every rational part of your brain screams that this is a waste of time, that you could be doing literally anything else with your finite existence on this planet. But yet you click continue anyway. That click is an act of pure human defiance, not against the game, against the very idea that difficulty should make you quit, against the notion that frustration equals failure, against a world that increasingly teaches us that resistance means we're doing something wrong. We are friction-seeking creatures living in a frictionless age. Everything in modern life is designed to eliminate resistance. Apps that predict your needs before you know them, recommendation algorithms that curate reality for your comfort. We've automated struggle out of existence and then wondered why existence feels so hollow. But some part of us remembers what we're supposed to be doing. Some ancient circuit in our brains knows that growth happens at the edge of breakdown, that strength emerges from resistance, that the most meaningful experiences require us to push against something that pushes back. Hostile games are friction made digital. They're spaces where you can remember what it feels like to want something badly enough to suffer for it, where desire and difficulty dance together in patterns that our ancestors would recognize. The same patterns that drove them to cross oceans, climb mountains, and build civilizations in places where civilizations had no business existing. When you spend 6 hours learning to parry in Dark Souls, you're not just mastering a gameplay mechanic. You're participating in the oldest human ritual, the transformation of impossibility into inevitability through sheer bloody-minded persistence. Watch someone truly obsessed with a hostile game, and you'll witness the strangest evolutionary process, a human mind rewiring itself to love what destroys it. Not necessarily masochism, but more transformation. The moment when your relationship with difficulty fundamentally shifts, when you stop asking, how do I avoid this pain, and start asking, how do I weaponize it? When failure becomes data, frustration becomes fuel, and rage crystallizes into precision. In Rust, after your 5th base gets obliterated, something clicks. The grief vanishes. What remains is calculation. You begin reading server populations like the stock market, mapping player sleep schedules like a strategist, building not just walls but entire psychological profiles of your neighbors. You become an anthropologist of cruelty, a sociologist of survival. The obsession doesn't consume you, it evolves you. You develop senses you didn't know existed, detecting lies in voice chat, predicting betrayals through behavioral patterns, managing complex webs of alliance and paranoia. You're not just playing a game anymore, you're conducting fieldwork in the laboratory of human nature. Hostile games teach you something that therapy can't. How to fall in love with your own persistence. Every continue click becomes a small act of self-authorship. Every death becomes evidence that you haven't quit yet. When you finally beat that boss on attempt 57, the victory isn't just biochemical, it's architectural. You've literally rebuilt your neural pathways around the concept of endurance. You become someone who can look at failure and see opportunity, who can transform humiliation into education, who can turn suffering into skill with the precision of an alchemist. This is why the satisfaction feels so profound. You haven't just overcome a challenge, you've performed surgery on your own limitations. You've proven that human will, properly applied anyway, can edit reality itself, at least within the confines of these games. In most areas of life, your circumstances choose you. Your genetics, your family, your historical moment, all variables selected by forces beyond your control. Even your achievements often depend on timing, luck, being born in the right century with the right opportunity. But these games create something rarer, pure meritocracy of spirit. Every victory belongs to you because you bled for it. Every skill is yours because you forged it. No one can inherit your Dark Souls mastery. No one can be handed your Kenshi survival instincts. No algorithm can replicate the exact combination of stubbornness and existential fury that carried you through it all. This ownership runs deeper than normal achievement because it was earned in systems that actively wanted you to fail. You didn't succeed because the game let you. You succeeded because you refused to let the game stop you. The mastery becomes part of your identity, in ways that easier accomplishments never could. Every time you click continue, you're participating in the most fundamentally human activity. The refusal to accept that this is how the story ends. This isn't necessarily just about video games. This is about the core drive that separates us from every other species on the planet. Not intelligence, because other animals solve problems. Not tool use, other animals build things. What makes us uniquely human is our capacity to look at finality and treat it as a rough draft. Hostile games compress this drive into pure experience. They create spaces where your most essential human quality, the beautiful, terrible refusal to surrender, becomes the primary tool for progress. Where evolution happens in fast forward, compressed into hours instead of generations. When you master these systems, you're not just good at a game. You've practiced being human at maximum intensity. You've learned to fail without breaking, to persist without guarantee, to find meaning in the act of trying itself. We keep coming back to games that hate us because they offer something increasingly rare in modern life. The chance to discover who we become when everything is working against us. Not the comfortable version of ourselves that modern life encourages. The version that thrives on impossibility, grows through adversity, finds purpose in the act of overcoming. The version our ancestors would recognize, the one that looked at oceans and decided that they could be crossed, at mountains and decided they could be climbed, at the concept of flight and decided physics was negotiable. These games don't just challenge us. They remind us that we're still capable of the thing that built civilization. The magnificent refusal to accept limitation as final. Every death is data, every failure is fuel, every impossible challenge is just another invitation to prove that impossible is a temporary designation. You know this isn't fun, but you keep playing anyway. Because some part of you, the part that matters most, remembers what you were built to do. I rage quit Dark Souls after 20 minutes the first time I played it. Literally through the controller. This isn't fun, I said, this is just masochism with better graphics. And honestly, that's exactly how I felt about starting this channel too. I was working a job I hated in university for a course I didn't care about, and this channel was the only thing that felt like mine. But I was terrified to even begin. Scared that nobody would care, or worse, that people would care and hate it. My hands would shake before hitting publish, the same way they did before walking through a Dark Souls fog gate. Every time I thought about uploading the first video or any subsequent ones at the start, my brain would whisper the same thing it did when I lost to a boss. This is pointless, you're just going to fail anyway. But then something shifted. In Dark Souls it happened during my 23rd attempt at the Capra Demon. I wasn't just learning the patterns anymore, I was learning how to be the kind of person who doesn't quit when things get impossible. The same person I needed to become to make this channel work. In Rust, it was the first time I rebuilt my base after being raided. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to prove I could. On YouTube, it was watching that first video crawl past 1,000 views, and realizing that people actually cared about what I had to say. Also, that video was the, why we care about games with futility or something like that. It's not a good video, don't go back and watch it. Each time, the lesson was identical. This isn't about avoiding failure, it's about enduring it long enough to build something that lasts. The failures were brutal. My third video got like 47 views in the first week. I refreshed the analytics page obsessively for 3 days, watching that number barely budge. I almost deleted the channel after my original Cyberpunk video flopped. I spent like a week or two on it, and it got like fucking 20 views in the first week or something. There was a night I sat staring at the delete channel button for like 20 minutes, wondering if everyone was right about me being crazy for spending weekends making videos instead of doing literally anything else. Every video felt like another death in any of these games. Every algorithm change felt like logging into Rust to find smoking ruins where your base used to be. I'd get that same stomach drop feeling checking YouTube analytics as I did watching You Died appear on screen. I watched other creators blow up while my videos sat at double-digit views, and wondered what was wrong with me. But like in these games, the only real mistake is stopping. So I kept going, kept learning, kept rebuilding. Every failed upload became data, every disappointing view count became fuel. Every comment telling me I was wrong became an invitation to get better. The pain wasn't the obstacle, although it sure felt like it. It was the teacher. Then something clicked. The first time someone said my video helped them understand a game differently, I realized I wasn't just making content, I was having conversations. When I stopped trying to copy other YouTubers and started talking like myself, everything changed. Now, a year later, Not Saber is almost at 50,000 people. That number doesn't even feel real. My mother still doesn't understand what I do, but she asks about the video thing now. Someone commented last week, "Your videos help me understand why I love these games." And I realized that's exactly what these games did for me. They helped me understand why I love the struggle. Every single person who's watched, commented, shared, or just stuck around while I figured out what I was doing. You've been part of my journey the same way I've been part of these games. Surviving, failing, getting back up and trying again. You've made this struggle worth it. More than that, you've made it beautiful. I think that's why these games resonate so deeply with me now. They don't just teach you to persist, they teach you to find beauty in the persistence itself. That's what this channel became for me. Not just proof I could survive the struggle, but proof I could learn to love it. These games taught me that struggle isn't something to eliminate, it's what transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. That the best victories are the ones you have to bleed for. That the most meaningful achievements are the ones that nobody can take away from you, because nobody else could have endured what it took to earn them. The fight is what makes it real. The pain is what makes it yours. So if you're struggling with your own impossible challenge, whether it's a boss that keeps killing you, a creative project that won't come together, or just the daily grind of existing in a world that doesn't seem designed for your success, keep going. Keep clicking continue. Don't quit just because it hurts. Quit only when you've learned everything the pain has to teach you. Which, if these games have taught me anything, might be never. You know this isn't easy, but you keep trying anyway. And maybe that's exactly the point. So here we are at the end of our descent into digital suffering. We've mapped the territories where pain teaches lessons, indifference breeds authenticity, and human stubbornness transforms impossibility into inevitability. But maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. The universe is the ultimate hostile game. No tutorial, no quest markers, no customer service when entropy takes everything you've built. Just systems operating by their own logic, pursuing their own ends, utterly indifferent to whether you find them fair. And yet somehow, in this cosmic simulation that never asked for our input, consciousness emerged. Life found purchase, intelligence learned to light fires in the dark. Humans looked at a universe designed to kill them and decided to build civilizations anyway. These games, Dark Souls, Kenshi, Rust, all of them, aren't just simulating hostility, they're simulating the fundamental condition of existence. The miracle isn't that we love them despite their cruelty. The miracle is that anything capable of love emerged from cruelty in the first place. When you click continue after your 100th death, you're participating in the same defiant act that turned chemistry into biology, biology into consciousness, consciousness into art. You're proving that meaning doesn't require permission from the systems that contain it. This video exists because a year ago, I decided to start a channel about the games that taught me how to fail better. Now approaching 50,000 people who somehow found meaning in watching me think out loud about digital suffering, I realized the real lesson was simpler than I thought. We don't love games that hate us because we're masochists, or because pain gives meaning, or because struggle builds character. We love them because they're honest about what we already know. That everything worth doing is impossible until somebody decides that it isn't. But there's something else, something deeper. In a world increasingly designed to eliminate friction, to predict our needs, to remove every obstacle between desire and satisfaction, these games preserve something essential about the human experience. They maintain spaces where effort matters, where failure teaches, where victory must be earned. They're not just games, they're some type of time machine. They let us remember what it felt like when survival required skill, when comfort required effort. They preserve the conditions that forged us as a species, the hostility that made us human, that the universe doesn't owe us anything, but we can take something from it anyway. That the worlds that don't care if we exist are the only ones where existing feels like a choice worth making. That maybe, just maybe, the games that hate us are the only ones honest enough to love us properly. In the end, the games that hate us are the only ones that teach us how to love ourselves. Okay, well, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. Let me know how you feel about this style. It's more abstract, philosophical, ranty, saying the same thing over and over for 40 minutes. Actually, that's just my normal videos. Yeah. But yeah, let me know if you want, because I just see how I can diversify the content. If this doesn't work, then I will figure something else, I guess. Well, fuck it. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'd like to thank the channel members and the Patreons. That, of course, being the Milkman, Flapjack, Camo Chameleon, Vested Voice, Copper Boltwire, Rasalki Ryler, Will Provine, Reese Lunn, Aroxano, Vinicus Franca, A Brick Wall, Ash Crowing, Adrian Nerium, Crit Croc, Myhara Project, Proxy, Ice Bear, and that's the end of the list. I don't know what said it like that. But yeah, thank you all so much for the support. Truly means the world. If you too want to get your name read out and get access to the first part of the Q&A, then, make sure to check those out, either or, whichever. It's up to you. But yeah, God, I'm tired. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And let me know what other stuff you'd let me see me cover. Bye-bye.